Okay. Today we're going to be talking about the Individualized Education Program, or what we often refer to just as the IEP. So we're learning all about IEPs today, and I want to share a couple of quick references before we get into it. They'll also be listed at the end. These are very good references. The first one is, I'm not sure if you can see it, all about IEPs, okay? And that's written by Peter Wright, Pamela Wright, and Sandra O'Connor from Wright's Law. And their website is listed at the end of this as well. And then this is a new book, IEP Guide for All. This is a new one that was just put out this year by the Children's Health Defense. And it's written by Jennifer Laviano and Julia Swanson. Okay, two good, very good resources, simply explaining the IEP. Actually, the IEP really is not that difficult, but somehow we have just made it so complicated. So hopefully this IEP workshop will be helpful to help you to understand the IEP a little bit better, how you can be involved in your children's education, and we'll move on from there right now. Okay, so this is presented by the base PowerPoint came from the Learning Disabilities Association of Hawaii, which is our Parent Training and Information Center under the Office of Special Education Program for the South Pacific. The Parents of Children with Special Needs Network is an extension of LDAH in Hawaii, and that's how we are providing these workshops. Okay, so Parents of Children with Special Needs Network is also part of this presentation today. All right, what we are going to be learning about today are federal and state laws regarding the Individualized Education Program, the components of the IEP, and the IEP in American Samoa. So I have a copy of the IEP, and I've embedded into this PowerPoint it page by page, depending on what we're talking about, so that you can actually see it and know what is being filled out on behalf of your child by your teachers and by the team. Okay. The goal today is that you'll have a better understanding of the IEP, its components used to develop the IEP for your child. The first thing to understand is the federal laws that guide the special education program comes from IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act of 2004. Okay. It's actually way back into 1975, I think it was, when children were no longer segregated, told that they needed to start educating the children with disabilities, mainstreaming them in. Okay, so this act to educate our children in with their regularly functioning peers, other students, it stems back way to 1975. Okay, this particular act, IDEA, was created in 2004. There's, a few adjustments and addendums here and there, but basically it's the same since 2004. In American Samoa, we have what's called Chapter 16, which outlines our SPED policies and procedures. Oh yeah, this is the Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975 is what initiated all that. Okay, in our IEP, or when we're looking at a child who has a difference or a disability that's affecting the way they can learn, there are 13 eligibility categories to be eligible for special education. Those are listed here. We have autism, deafness, emotional disturbance, hearing impairment, intellectual disability, multiple disabilities, orthopedic impairment, other health impairment, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, or a visual impairment, including blindness. These are the 13 eligibility categories. A child that enters into the special education program falls into one of these categories to find them eligible to receive special education services. All right, so what is the IEP? The Individualized Education Program, or the IEP, is a written document, something that you and the team work together on to create. It's a document that describes the students' specialized instruction and accommodations that will be given in order to help them to be successful in school and to be educated with their peers in the least restrictive environment as possible. And we'll get to those terms. IEPs are legally binding. Whatever is written in the IEP must be done. Okay. And it's required for students that have disabilities or health conditions which affect their ability to learn and participate in school. One thing to remember is that your child is first and foremost a regular ed student. Now that came from this IEP Guide for All book. Okay, they are a regular ed student. They're supposed to be into the regular education classroom. If they have a disability or an impairment or a difference that makes it difficult for them to be educated in the regular classroom, that's where special education comes in to help provide those adaptations and supports so that they can remain in the classroom, or maybe they need to have some pull-out time during the day into another classroom, so it's more beneficial to them. Okay, so we're not putting a child in or out of classrooms because it's beneficial to other students or other teachers. We're putting them in or out of the classroom because it's beneficial to them, this student, to be able to be successful in learning in school. Okay, what is a conference announcement? Conference announcement is when you have decided on a day, time, location, and who will be attending the IEP meeting. Once all this has been determined, you've gone back and forth with the school, determined a date and a time and a place where you can have this IEP meeting. Who's going to be in the IEP meeting? You're going to get a conference announcement. It informs you as a parent of the agreed upon date, the time and location of the meeting, as well as who will be attending the meeting. This may include individuals who have knowledge or special expertise about your child. Basically, it's an invitation, but you help create this invitation. Okay. So the first thing you should be getting then after you determine the time and date of having your IEP meeting is a conference announcement. Who will attend the IEP meeting? Well, it's required by law. The parent of the student, there might be special situations when the parent can't attend, and we'll get to that later, but the parent of the student, at least one regular education teacher, at least one special education teacher, a representative of the department, that is an administrator or somebody who can make administrative decisions, an individual who can interpret and explain evaluation results. For example, if the speech therapist has done an evaluation, they should be there to interpret the results of their evaluation. If they cannot, they would appoint somebody else who can give those results during the meeting. Any other individuals with special expertise or knowledge, like the physical therapist, counselor, speech therapist, behavior therapist. If appropriate, the student may also attend, and the parent may also invite others to attend the meeting with them for support. Here is an example of the first page of the IEP in American Samoa. So on the right, on the left side, I think is the one for high school students, and on the right side of the screen is the one for the elementary students. The high school students is a little bit longer, 2 pages longer, because it has a section in there on transitioning, which is something that comes about when the child turns about 14. We start transition processes actually from the very beginning. You start thinking ahead about where are we guiding, what are we educating the student to become when they're out of school. And so transition actually starts from the very beginning, but in the high school IEP, we actually have a page dedicated to transition planning. Okay, a statement of the student's present levels of academic achievement and functional performance is on this first page. Okay, this is vital. This is a very important step in the IEP because it describes the child, it describes the student, all their strengths, their weaknesses, maybe if they have triggers or what calms them. This is a very important part for you as a parent to be involved in creating this part. You may have heard PLEF. PLEF is the acronym PLAAFP, and they often just call it the PLEF, but this is what it is. So we're going to be describing, it's going to describe how the student's disability affects their ability to be involved and progress in the general education program. Okay, so remember, the child is first of all a regular education student. If we were to put your child or the student into a regular education classroom, what might be some difficulties that they face in learning? For example, maybe they are very sensitive to bright lights and the classroom has bright lights. Or maybe the child is in a wheelchair, but there's steps to get into the classroom. Okay, these would be situations or things that you would write into the PLEP about how the disability can affect their ability to attend the general education curriculum. And so that would help us to be able to work what kind of supports, what kind of things do we need to do so that they can stay in the regular education classroom. For preschool students, it's more talking about how the disability affects their participation in appropriate activities because they haven't been in school yet, so you can't really talk about the general education. But once they're in school, then the PLEF is talking about how the disability affects their involvement and progress in the school, in the general curriculum. Okay, here's an example of a PLEF that I wrote for my daughter. The teacher had written a couple of lines about my daughter, and that was all she put in the PLEP. So I sent back the IEP and said, no, this is my daughter. Okay. And it explained everything about her. It explained what her strengths were, explained what her triggers were, it explained how she's calmed. It explained the medical difficulties that she has. So I just wanted them to be able to know everything about her. So when they read it, then they were right away able to help to meet her needs in the school system. They didn't have to spend a couple of months trying to learn my daughter. So as a parent, you don't always have to write something this much, but it's important to be involved in this part of it and make sure that there's all kinds of things. And this is where you would also put maybe your concerns as a parent. Example I had, my daughter is very attracted to water. She loves going to the water. And the school that she was at happened to be on the beach on the coastline. And I was very afraid that if they ever turn their back, she might be out the door and running down to the water. So that was a concern for me. And that was something that I had in her IEP when she was in elementary school. So these are the kind of things too that she might want to include in this section of the IEP. Okay, the PLEF is the foundation of the IEP. It sets the baseline and where we want to start. It describes the academic achievement that your child does already have and the functional performance. These are non-academic things. Maybe they're very artistic, or maybe they have difficulty with swallowing food. So these would be kind of some examples of non-academic type of functional performance that might be included. It is a place for parents to express their concerns. Okay, here's a sample of PLEP in that LDAH added to this PowerPoint. For example, Charlie is a pleasant 8-year-old student who generally is quiet and quiet demeanor. He's cooperative and responds to others with little attention drawn to him. He was recently diagnosed with ADHD and currently receiving specialized instruction in some academic areas where he appears to have challenges. His current eligibility category is emotional disturbance. The following information has been collected through a variety of sources. Okay. Then they listed his strengths in math and the needs in math. For example, he can do a single-step math problem independently. He's able to do a 2-step math problem with minimal coaching. However, in the needs, when we get to multiple steps, he has more difficulty. In language, he's very interested in books and able to read single words by sounding them out. But the needs is that his reading level is 2 levels below his age expected level. Then they have something about functional achievement. Example, Charlie has a difficult time with in-seat behavior. He will fidget and become restless. Although he will have difficulties with understanding verbal instruction, if you pair it with visual prompts, then he's much more successful. So this is a really good description of Charlie. So if the teacher, say the teacher's absent and another teacher comes in, they can follow this plan too, and they can get a better idea of Charlie without just wasting a day. Okay. All right. We talked a little bit about transition services earlier. Transition services are included in the high school IEP. Transition service means a coordinated set of activities for a student with a disability that is a results-oriented process, is focused on improving the functional achievement of the student to facilitate the student's movement from school to post-school. For example, are they going to go to college? Are they going to go to a trade school? Will they work? Will they stay home? Transition services begin at the very first IEP by identifying the student's interest. And a formal transition meeting then occurs when the child is 16, where they begin to make plans for transitioning out of school. And this is very helpful for parents too, to also prepare for when your child is going to be out of school. Many of us may need to quit work because we need to stay home with our child now, or be their teacher, or be their coach, or their employer. So this gives us a chance too to begin to make our own transition plans of what we're going to do when our child is out of school, especially if they are dependent. Transition services begin at the age 14 or younger. A statement of transition service needs to focus on the student's courses of study. At the beginning of age 16 or younger, appropriate measurable post-secondary goals based on age-appropriate transition assessments related to training, education, employment, and when appropriate, independent living skills. These shall be developed. Okay. What do we have in American Samoa? Okay, well, as far as employment, we have vocational rehab services, which can help to work with a student who is able to be employed. And they will provide a service where they can actually shadow or coach the person at the job for up to 6 months to get them ready to become independent and working. So this is a good, vocational rehab is a good place to start when you're looking at possible employment after high school. There's also our college ASCC. There's also many online college opportunities where you could like homeschool into higher education if this works better for your student. There's also the option that the child may be homebound afterwards, and this is where it's very important to work with the parents in understanding what their needs are going to be when their child is out of school and now home. We also have in American Samoa, we have our Parents of Children with Special Needs Network, which is a parent-to-parent support group. And we have different activities throughout the week to help and enrich and continue with adult special education with our students. We have life skill classes, cooking classes, fitness classes, and lots of field trips and so forth. These classes, however, though the child does not attend independently, the child must come, or by this time adult, I'm sorry, must come with a buddy or a support person, because we're all parents and we're taking care of our own children. So unless they are very independent, they need to come with a buddy. Okay, here is the section on the IEP's transition plan on the high school IEP. Okay. And you can see a section here where it talks about the transition plan and what some of the options might be, beginning at the age of 16. So if your child is going to exit school at 18, that's like 2 years. But remember, you can keep your child into age 21 if you find school to be beneficial for them, and it's a good placement for them. They can stay until they're 21 in American Samoa. Okay, so here is just a little section on transfer of rights at the age of majority. When your child turns 18, they are now an adult, and they are to be making their own decisions. People don't make decisions for you when you're 18 and over. This is also for our children with disabilities. Here in American Samoa, there's not too much of a problem with that. We often, like if your adult is say 20 years old and they need to go to the hospital and they're non-speaking, most doctors and nurses here are going to talk to you. But if you go to the States, the laws are different and they may not talk to you. They may not feel they have the legal right to, because your child is 18 or older. So if you're a young adult needs to have your help to make decisions in their life, whether that be medical decisions or financial decisions, you need to start the process of getting guardianship of your young adult. There is another YouTube video here on guardianship. You can go and watch that. It's short and it directs you exactly what you need to do and what the process is here in American Samoa to get guardianship. That way, if you travel and something happens where your child needs medical attention or whatever, you can speak on their behalf and they'll be allowed to let you help them. Okay, measurable annual goals. Goals, okay, so the IEP now we've gotten to the point where we understand who the child is. We understand that they're eligible for special education. Now we're going to start creating the goals for them for the school year. Okay, the goals they must meet the student's needs and be created in such a way to enable the student to be involved in and make progress in the general education curriculum. So we want to make goals that say by the end of the year, this child should be able to, and then you have your goal. Maybe it's a reading goal or a math goal, or maybe it's a functional goal. The goals need to be realistic. Okay, they need to be strength-based goals. So we don't base our goals on what they can't do, but we base our goals on what they can do, and we build upon what they can do. Okay, this is very different. In the past, goals were often weakness based. So we find out what they can't do, and that's what we're going to teach them. But now we're finding out what they can do, and we're going to build upon that in order to build up those weaker areas by growing off of the strength. SMART goals SMART is an acronym of how goals are recommended to be created. The goals must be specific, so individualized to the child, a goal that is meaningful to them. It must be measurable. You need to be able to show in some sort of form of data that the goals are being met or you're moving forward towards that goal. It must be attainable. Okay, you must have a goal that the child is able to reach. Okay, you don't want to create goals that are way out there and they're not going to be able to reach. We want to create goals that they can reach. You can always change the goal. If they reach the goal, then we create another goal. Okay, they must be relevant. So something that's let's say a child is paraplegic, just say the child is paraplegic, unable to walk, then we wouldn't want to have goals that they're able to run a mile. Or a lot of times with my daughter who's non-speaking, she had goals that she would be able to say her ABCs. Well, she's non-speaking, so that's not a relevant goal for her. And the goals must be time bound, meaning that we say within 3 months or within 1 month or by the end of the year. Okay, so the goals need to have a time frame. I'm going to go through that a little bit more here. Here is the page where we see goals, measurable goals down at the bottom on each side. So the measurable goals, and it tells, so they have the number of the goal and the method to evaluate the program, and then different dates and progress notes of those goals. All right, benchmarks. Now, what are benchmarks? Okay, benchmarks are also listed on the IEP, and these are those short-term objectives between the main goals. So if you have like an annual goal of, so your student is going to be able to read at the second grade level by the end of May of this year. Okay. Then for October, November, December, January, you might have smaller goals that ultimately reach up to that second grade level by the end of the year. Okay. These are really great, and they're very informative to the teacher and to the parents, because as you get to that first benchmark, if you've made it, then yay, you've made it and you're on track. If you haven't made the goal, then maybe you need to go back and reassess and shorten that goal up a little bit. Okay, bring it back in a little bit so the child can be successful. Or maybe they surpass the goal in the first week. Then you need to go back again and reassess and maybe make it a little more challenging. So the benchmarks are really important in being able to set. And it's really great because if a teacher has their benchmarks, they have their annual goals, it's very easy for them then to create their curriculum and their supports and services around the educational program in order to help the child, right? Right, extended school year, ESY. All right, these are provided so that the student with a disability will not gain skills during that extended break. So the extended breaks we have here are typically Christmas, which is 2 to 3 weeks, and summer, which is 2 to 3 months. Okay. ESY is school that's provided beyond the normal school year in accordance with the student's IEP and at no cost to the parents or the students. Okay. In American Samoa, we pretty much have extended school year for about 6 weeks every summer. Okay. But if it was very evident that your child was going to lose ground over that 2-week Christmas break, you could actually request ESY services during that 2-week Christmas break. Okay, not too many children are going to lose that time, and a lot of times we need a little break too from school. So it's good to look at every aspect too. But generally here in American Samoa, it's just that 6-week period in the summer. Sometimes it's 4 weeks. We have ESY services. Here is the page that talks about consideration of special factors. Oops. Okay. Let me get through this one. This is where it talks like, does the child need to have ESY services? So right here, number 2, does the student need extended service year? And yes, no, or will be determined by the end of the year. Okay. So this is something that's also in the IEP. Okay, next page. Services. What are the different types of services that a child can get in special education that will support and help them to accomplish their education? So we have special education and related services. Related services being like speech, behavioral, occupational therapy, supplementary aids and services. Maybe they need an AAC device. Maybe they need assistive technology. Modifications and supports for school personnel. Okay, the teacher themselves may need some modifications and supports. Maybe they need a quiet room in the classroom so that when the child is overstimulated by lights or noise, they can enter into the quiet room to have that sensory break. And clarifications for services and support are written in on the IEP as well. Here is that page where we talk about the summary of service matrix down here. So it under like reading, then you might give the different types of related services down here are listed, what they might need, supplementary aid and services, program modifications, okay, that the school is proposing. That's on this page here of the IEP. Okay, statewide assessments. All right. Remember how in the end of the school year, you always have to take those assessments to be able to see, they want to then get averages of all of our students and compare them nationwide. Okay. When we talk about our students with disabilities, they may need to have certain supports or accommodations to help them to be able to take these assessments. So the IEP will include a statement of any individual and appropriate accommodations that are needed to measure the academic achievement and functional performance of the student on a state and district-wide assessment. So if the IEP team determines that the child must take an alternate assessment instead of a particular regular state or district-wide assessment, then they need to make a statement as to why the child cannot participate in the regular testing and what the proposed alternative assessment is that would be appropriate. So let's say your child is well, let's just say we have a child that's blind. Okay, this child would not be able to sit down and take a regular statewide assessment. They would need to have someone either to read the questions and answer for them or have the assessment in Braille. So this would be an appropriate accommodation for a student that was blind. Here is the page on our IEP where it talks about the measurable goals. Let's see, down here, participation in statewide assessment. So this is the section here where they will click off language arts, math, science, whether they're going to have a regular assessment or an accommodation. Okay, and then it's detailed down below. Okay. The least restrictive environment is very important. Okay, this is allowing the student to be educated in a placement that allows him with his maximum time with his peers. So we want our children to be educated in the regular classroom under the general curriculum as much as possible. Now, there might be times when they have to be pulled out of the classroom, and that is also on the IEP. It actually lists the amount of pull-out time of the regular classroom. It might be 20% of the day, 30% of the day, 60% of the day, 80% of the day. But that is on the IEP, and that's something that you all discuss together as a team, as how much pull-out time. And we should see that pull-out time decrease as a child gets older. We want them to be educated as much as possible in the presence of their regularly attending peers. Okay. We don't want to just take all of our SPED students and stick them in a resource room and educate them there. We want them to be in the regular classroom. This, of course, may take additional teachers, employees on the school system's part. And a lot of times when someone's sick, then the child can't go to the classroom. But as much as possible, it's very important to get them being educated with their peers. And this is not just for our students with disabilities to be with their peers, but it's for their peers to understand and appreciate the diversity and disabilities, and that these other students, that the disability really doesn't change who they are, and that they can, it's a win-win on both sides. Okay. That's what I'm trying to say. Sorry. Okay. Here is least restricted environment on the IEP form. Okay. And the bottom half of this page shows those who attended the IEP meeting, and everybody signs. It's good to know that when we're conducting the IEP meeting, there might be a time when a parent cannot be in attendance. Maybe they've tried several times. Maybe the parent is sick and in hospital a lot, or maybe they're off island, or there's something else going on. The team can go ahead and do an IEP meeting and set those goals and get things started without delaying any longer if needed. Okay. We can also amend an IEP without a meeting. Okay. If you want to just make a simple change, you can talk to the program directors, their resource specialists, and see if you can make just a minor change without having to call an entire meeting. But if you're making big changes, like say the child has matched all their goals and they need to make some changes in their goals, or change in their placement, or any other major changes, parent concerns, you can call an IEP meeting at any time. Anytime you can call that IEP meeting. Okay, before any of the IEP now can actually be started. So let's say that you've had your IEP meeting, you've gone through the meeting now, and you've established the goals and the benchmarks, how much time they're going to be in the classroom, how much time they're going to be pulled out, what are the related services and supports that they might need. Okay, before the school can actually implement any of that education plan, they must give you a prior written notice to let you know that this is the decisions that were made and this is how we're going to educate the student. This is where the parent can either agree or disagree as well too. Proposes or refuses to initiate a change of identification, evaluation, education, placement. Okay, so the prior written notice is going to explain everything that was decided upon, what's agreed upon, what they're going to provide, and then they give you that notice. Let me back up just a little bit. When you're in the IEP meeting now, a lot of times the IEP meetings, you'll go in and sit down, there'll be all these people there, and one by one around the table, people will talk about the student and how they're doing in their classroom, or how they're doing with their service, and what they do with the child and so forth. And then it'll come around to the parent will do the same thing. The parent may start it off. Okay. And then at the end, everybody leaves and the teacher goes back and starts writing down all the goals, and then presents the IEP to the parent to review, and the parent reviews it, approves or disapproves, whatever. But actually, the way the IEP meeting is supposed to go is that while you're in the IEP meeting, you're writing those goals together as a team. Okay. You're writing the goals, you're determining the placements, you're determining the timeout time, you're determining the related services and how often they're going to be provided with those related services like speech. And the goals are all written right there together as a team. This is really important because as a parent, you're part of that team and you need to be involved in creating these goals. And these need to be goals not only that can be done at school, but that you can continue on and reinforce at home. So if they're doing a goal at school where there's no way you can reinforce it at home in any way, that maybe they can adjust the goal some way so it can be something that can be done at home as well. But these are things that we need to do. It also is much better for the teacher. If all the goals and everything are decided upon and written during the meeting, then all the teacher has to do is go home and plug everything into the form and submit it, and then everybody can sign it. It should already be okay with everybody because you've made those goals together. Okay, other helpful hints, IEP is a program, the way a student learns. A resource room is location, not a program. Always get anything in writing. If a teacher or a program director or somebody assures you that the speech therapist is going to be coming once a month for the next 6 months, then get that in writing so that you have it in your binder at home that you're keeping of your children's records. Okay. Check your children's records. You can even request your records and then keep a copy of them at home on your own too, so you always are updated on what's going on. The curriculum also needs to be evidence-based. There's no random trials. The teacher can't just say, I've been reading about this today. I've been reading about this thing on online, and I want to try it to see if it helps with the child. Well, first of all, let's see, is there evidence behind it? Is it something that's been tested with kids with disabilities or the same maybe autism, whatever the student has? And is it evidence-based? It's working. There's a reason for trying to do that. We don't want to just throw in random trials. Okay. Here are those resources again that I talked about at the beginning: Leadership and Disabilities and Achievement of Hawaii, and there's their website there. The IEP Guide for All by Jennifer Laviano and Julie Swanson. That's the new book that just came out this year. All About IEPs by Rights Law. There's their website there. They have a lot of information too. Rights Law has a wealth of information on it on their website. And Office of Special Education program itself. There's the government website there, has a vast amount of information on it too. That's very helpful. We thank you for attending the workshop. This is, of course, a PowerPoint that we have for other workshops, so there's no evaluation here. Don't worry about that. Contact, if you need more information, you can log on to the Leadership and Disabilities and Achievement of Hawaii, LDAH, or the Parents of Children with Special Needs Network, PCSN. And there's the email and phone number there. Okay, thank you very much.